right, thank you everybody for coming tonight. Before we get started, we'd like to have a moment of silence. Observe two young students who passed away tragically last month. Jameson, a first grader at Daniel Boone Elementary, and his younger brother Julian, who attended Meadows Parkway Early Childhood Center, both lost their lives in a house fire. So let's just take a moment of silence to honor these two boys who will be missed forever. Thank you very much. Let's begin tonight's meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board, I'd like a motion to approve the agenda for February 8th, 2024 as presented.
Second.
Ponder. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Next, we're going to introduce Ms. Jen Joles, who's going to introduce our student board representative.
Thank you, President Bertrand. And as you know, the purpose of the Student Board Rep program is to honor and recognize talented students, elevate student voice, and provide growth opportunities in the areas of public speaking, leadership, and governance. Students are selected for this honor by their principal with input from the student body. They have an opportunity to prepare and deliver a short speech to the board and the public that is focused on their school or the district. And with that, I'd like to invite Dr. Dave Bledlock, principal of Francis Howell High, to introduce our Student Board Rep for this evening.
Good evening. Tonight I have the pleasure of introducing tonight's Student School Board representative, Kush Malheshwari. Kush is the son of Mohit and Riti Malheshwari. We appreciate their efforts in and guiding Kush, and we are happy to see that they have joined us here in the audience. Kush is an outstanding senior student who exemplifies the best in Francis Howell Vikings. He maintains a 4.8 GPA, has a 34 on the ACT, which places him at top 1% of scores nationally, so it's not just us that says he's talented, it's the world. He's number one in his class and a member of 3 clubs in which he's a leader in all 3 of them. He's captain of the Scholar Bowl, marching band, drumline, snare drum leader, president and co-founder of the chess club. He is now accepting offers from colleges, currently Northwestern and Purdue at top of his list with a future degree in biomedical engineering. Most recently, he was selected as by a panel of Viking science, math, engineering, and technology teachers as the best STEM student at Francis Howell High School. Will be recognized by the St. Charles Economic Development Council later this month. He also participates in the O'Fallon Mayor's Youth Advisory Board, where he is helpful in moderating council candidate debate forums by asking questions of the candidates to inform voters. The key question for tonight is what makes Kush so effective both as a leader and an individual performer. His teachers always start with the obvious and say that he's very smart and talented and always nice. But then, whether it's a student or a teacher, they always get this huge smile on their face and they chuckle in amazement. It's just odd. All these people have the same reaction. And they have this reaction because they say that Kush is always nice in every situation. He accepts people for who they are, appreciates their contributions that they're able to make at whatever level, and involves them in creating solutions that make things better for everyone, whether it's in a class or in an activity. In talking with Kush, I could see his excitement in learning, helping kids to grow, and celebrating team success as he described his 9th grade biology project, in which he was to grow plants to describe his carbon footprint. As he described the plants, learning to grow them every day, feel the excitement of getting up in the morning and give them everything they need to succeed, and then celebrating the literal harvest at the end, I could see that he has such excitement and joy in working with others to make great success. This makes me very proud to be his principal, and I know many Vikings, including his peers here tonight, that are going to present here in a minute, along with his teachers, could not be more proud to know that he is receiving this honor. Congratulations, Kush, and I'm privileged to introduce you tonight as the Francis Howell High School Student School Board Representative.
Good evening, everyone. I would just like to start by thanking the board members here for giving me the chance to share a few experiences that I believe showcase the outstanding community here at Francis Howell High School and the exceptional academic opportunities available in this district and at my school specifically. I also would like to thank Dr. Wedlock for all his kind words and for choosing to represent Francis Howell High School at today's board meeting. Coming straight into middle school into the pandemic, I was not sure what activities and programs to join that would be of interest to me. I was in the middle school concert band, but I did not think I had enough passion or interest in percussion to continue that further. However, with some encouragement from my parents, I decided to try it out, and I attended one of the early marching band and drumline rehearsals in the summer for Francis Howell High School. Immediately, I noticed a shift from the traditional band setting that I was used to. The culture here was unique and different, and it was clear that all the students, A, had an interest, and B, liked to play music. Plus, it was so nice to see how welcoming all the upperclassmen were, and how they immediately made me feel like a part of their group and a part of their community. I noticed how they included me in their conversations, and even though I'd only known them for a few hours, they still invited me to their dinner plans after the practice. To me, this is what the Howell culture is all about, creating a sense of belonging among students, regardless of their background or experience level. Besides just the comfort from my peers, the skill level, and the high-quality instruction from the experienced staff members, I realized this is why Howell Drumline, and the band in particular, was seen as one of the best in the area. Through this program, we even had a chance to participate in the WGI World Championships my sophomore year, an experience not available to many schools in this area and many drummers in the U.S. Through marching band and indoor drumline in the winter, I learned confidence through expression and perseverance. In my junior year, I was chosen to lead the drumline as section leader, and through this position, I learned the importance of being a role model and a mentor. Another feature of Howell that stands out to me is the multitude of opportunities inside and outside the classroom. Many schools in our area limit the students on the number of AP classes or honors coursework that they can take, and sometimes don't even offer different subjects like computer science or engineering that are important for students to know what they actually want to pursue after high school. However, at Francis Howell, any student can take any class regardless of age. For example, me, along with many other juniors, were able to take AP Calculus last year, even though that is normally a senior level class at the majority of schools in St. Louis. I believe early exposure to more advanced coursework and material is a great way for students to prepare themselves for their future college education while simultaneously developing important study habits and discipline. While I have numerous other stories that I could speak on to demonstrate the high quality of education and community that Francis Howell builds and instills in each student, I believe these were my two strongest examples. Again, I would like to thank Dr. Wedlock and all the board members for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I greatly appreciate it. I am confident that what I've learned at Francis Howell as a Francis Howell student has thoroughly prepared me for not just my future career, but my life in general. Thank you.
Welcome, Kush. We are so glad you're here. I'm Mrs. Stivich. I'll be your mentor for the evenings. You can write me notes here if you want, ask me questions. We're, on behalf of the board, President Bertrand, Vice President Cook, and Treasurer Ms. Huskar, we're really glad you're here joining us. We love to hear from you. You can participate in our discussions, you just can't vote with us, okay? But we are really glad you're here, so if you have anything, just let us know.
Thank you.
Welcome. Next, we have Ms. Jen Jules again. We'll talk about our spotlight.
All right, thank you. And tonight for our Spotlight presentation, we are excited for you to learn more about the Girls in STEM program at Howell High. This is a mentorship program that aims to help girls interested in science, technology, engineering, and math, and helps them pursue their passions. This student-led club was featured in a recent issue of Mid-Rivers News Magazine and involves a group of high school students, you're going to meet some of them tonight, mentoring younger students in the district. And I'll invite Dr. Wedlock back to the podium to talk with you first about the importance of involvement and how Francis Howell High encourages students to stay active in clubs and organizations such as Girls in STEM.
Encouraging and supporting involvement in club sports and activities at FHHS is a vitally important part of our success for many reasons. The first, and maybe the most clear to people who visit the school, may be the great spirit of community at the school that people see in school events, and they see in the long history of success written on the walls and shared in stories as people at the events enjoy the history of Francis Howell High School that dates back to 1915. For today's Vikings, the feeling of community can be found in school activities that lead them to feel accepted, appreciated, and ultimately motivated to be their best and work hard to reach difficult aspirations. Their motivation may be clear in the 69% of students currently, which is 1,200 students after the fall semester, who have already been involved in one activity this year. They maintain a 3.64 GPA, which is 7/10 higher than students that are not involved. Their attendance is more than 2 days more than students that do not participate and have markedly fewer discipline referrals when compared to students not involved. Our efforts to involve all students include the activity director Sean Irwin's multiple emails and personal meetings with students who are not involved to talk about opportunities, our coaches and sponsors who actively recruit students to join and sustain their membership, and our staff as a whole who has spent time each month this year talking with the entire student population about the fun opportunities to get involved in some of the great accomplishments of the many clubs, sports, and activities at Francis Howell High School. An outstanding example of what this involvement can mean is here tonight with the leaders of the Girls STEM Club. There are 4 seniors who are an awesome example of this activity in action. They are Mai Angia, Amvitha McKenna, Pooja Nagaredi Gari, and Bridget Reichart, who have this amazing and likely unique distinction of having an average ACT score of 35.5 among the 4 of them. They are joined with their sponsor, Merrill Koenig from Francis Howell Middle, who they work together each week to develop activities for middle school girls to get excited about joining science, technology, and engineering classes once they get to high school. They will do a much better job than I could of describing that, so I'll invite them forward to walk you through all the great details.
Hi, my name is Maya.
I'm Anvitha. I'm Pooja.
And I'm Bridget. And we are Francis Howell High School Girls in STEM, a club and nonprofit dedicated to reducing the gender gap in STEM. Now, we founded this club because all of us experienced the severe lack of female representation in STEM classes at the high school. And so to fix this, we decided to inspire equitable and balanced mindsets in our future generations, because building a strong community starts with our future. But we're also incredibly thankful for our past, and that includes Mrs. Koenig, our sponsor, our mentor, and our inspiration. She represents an integral part of the Girls in STEM community, which is those women who have already experienced the STEM world and continue to fight for those in the future. We are here to extend our support to her kindness, her patience, her care, and most importantly, her efforts to support girls in STEM. We're not just here to support women in STEM, though. We're here to support everyone. We accept all types of students. And ultimately, we are here to show that Girls in STEM is a place where everyone, regardless of their gender or their interests, belongs.
So Maya touched on this before, but every week we prepare a presentation on a STEM-related topic and outline an experiment related to this project that the girls will conduct that day. This allows them to have some time to collaborate with their friends, but at the same time also have a basis on what the project is actually accomplishing. This is our Instagram account where we post weekly for parents and the larger community to update them on these STEM-related topics. We prepare both long-term workshops, like our egg drop and building bridge project, along with some short-term projects, like our water testing and DNA modeling exercise.
Our program has grown to over 25 members, and each week as we do this short and long-term projects, the students break off, learning to work with one another in small groups. Our work has also been featured in both our school district website, but also larger community networks such as Mid-Rivers News Magazine. Ultimately, our goal is to expand this outreach with Girls in STEM to other schools, both within our school district and the larger county as a whole.
Well, obviously, the students come to Girls in STEM to learn about STEM concepts in a fun and engaging way. The most profound impact of this club is the supportive community that we have built. Having a support system to stand beside you in success and in failure is critical in achieving personal growth and building the self-confidence it takes to persevere in a male-dominated field. So, in this club, we're not only girls who care about STEM, but most importantly, we're people who care about each other. Thank you.
Up next, we have patron comments. During patron comments, residents of the district and staff members are invited to address the Board of Education on issues related to the school district. Speakers are called forward in the order signed up, and each speaker has 3 minutes to make their remarks. Please remember that only one speaker is allowed at the podium at a time, and combining time or giving your time to someone else is not permitted. The board appreciates that you've taken the time to come this evening, and we value both your input and perspective. I would like to remind everyone that we expect our speakers will remain civil and respectful when giving remarks. If anyone fails to comply with board policies, regulations, and rules, we reserve the right to cut those 3 minutes short. For your convenience, we have our 3-minute clock ready. And we welcome Kirk Wolf.
Good evening, board. Many of the decisions that you make are very difficult, and it's often thankless work. So I'd like to start by thanking you all for your service. Tonight I'd like to comment on one of these tough decisions, the Security Vestibules project. Here we have what feels to me like deja vu, a project that is suddenly more than 96% over the estimates provided 3 months ago by Honer and Associates and our project manager. It's hard to say what's really going on. Is it incompetence by the architect and project manager? Is it a mismanaged bid process? Is it extreme inflation, or some combination? I'm not sure. What I can say is that tonight's presentation and recommendations in the agenda are simply infuriating. For example, slide 4 titled, quote, primary discrepancies per Honer and Associates. I have to ask you, why in the world should you consider excuses from them, right? Your immediate concern here tonight is to decide between 2 bad choices. Either 1, delay the project, or 2, continue it at almost double the cost estimates. This is tough because everyone agrees that these security upgrades are necessary. In the long run, however, if you send a message that you will accept these kind of blown estimates, then that's all you'll get going forward, and a broke school district. And a broke school district will have much bigger safety issues and not many options. In my career, I've seen how good executives deal with blown projects like this, and they all do one thing. They make sure that everyone involved suffers consequences. They want certainty that everyone is supremely motivated to control projects and costs. So, what would a good executive do in this case? I believe that they would start, obviously to me, by firing Honer and Associates. Next, they would ask our facilities director to come up with a temporary plan for enhancing security at the 5 schools and give him the task of delivering this project under some reasonable margin over the original estimate, like 20-25%. A good executive would make his job dependent on fixing this. You might think that such actions are harsh. They are, and they're tough. They're difficult to make, and you'll maybe not sleep nights doing it. But I ask you to focus on what is best in the long run for the taxpayers and students, and send a clear and unambiguous message of financial discipline. Thank you.
Next, we welcome Adriana Kuhn.
Hello, directors of the board, administration, and our community. I'm Adriana Kuhn, and I'm running for the Francis Howell School Board in the April 2nd election. I'm running for many reasons. A few of my top initiatives are supporting parental rights, overseeing fiscal responsibility, and improving academic standards. Today, I'd like to speak on some positive recent experiences I've noticed within our district. First, I'd like to acknowledge the recent open forum curriculum meeting. Thank you to our curriculum team for being available for this interactive and transparent forum that allowed anyone to come and discuss proposed curriculum face-to-face with members of our Francis Howell curriculum team. I found this type of meeting refreshing and beneficial to speak personally with individuals building curriculum for Francis Howell. Second, I'd like to recognize the board for diligently overseeing our budget for the last few years. Many parents and citizens may not be aware that from 2014 to 2018, our teachers did not receive their yearly scheduled salary steps. This was the direct result of poor fiscal oversight in our district. During that time, for 4 consecutive years, our district struggled to maintain the minimum requirement of 15% operating expense reserves. Currently, due to the board's diligent fiscal oversight, our district has expense reserves of approximately 30%. We have not had such a high percentage of operating expense reserves in our district for many, many years. Currently, negotiations are occurring for staff salaries, and with such large operating expense reserves, I'm hopeful our board will continue to work towards reinstating missed salary steps for our teachers. Lastly, as we're approaching Valentine's Day next week, I ask everyone to consider taking a little time to email teachers and district staff that have positively impacted their lives. Let them know that you recognize all the hard work they do, and let them know that you value their meaningful contributions they make to your child's life. Daily interactions our children have in our schools may seem trivial to some, but these daily interactions can have real, meaningful, long-term effects in the eyes of a child. So this week, let's flood our teachers, board, and administration with emails of support and appreciation. Thank you.
Next, we welcome Sam Young.
Good evening, board, superintendent, staff. My name is Sam Young, and I'm running for Francis Howell School Board. I'm from the other side of the state, born and raised outside of Independence, Missouri. I grew up in and am a product of the public school system. I attended Mizzou on a Navy ROTC scholarship to study engineering. Then I spent 20 years in the U.S. Navy, first on attack submarines in the Pacific, and later on major fleet staffs doing operational and strategic planning, with my last deployment being on a carrier strike group staff. During my time in the Navy, I obtained 2 master's degrees and qualified as a Navy nuclear engineer. My public school education provided the solid foundation upon which my naval career was built. I've always had a close connection to public schools teachers, beyond those that taught me in my K-12 education. My mom was a public school teacher, as were the parents of my 3 closest childhood friends. My father-in-law is a retired Wentzville School District teacher, and I have a brother who is a secondary school teacher who I talk to frequently about what is happening in Missouri schools. I value and honor the role that teachers have in our students' life. Teaching should be an emotionally rewarding experience. Instead, I hear stories of teachers being bogged down with data collection analysis, additional duties, and more paperwork. Teachers are getting less and less respect from students, parents, and even administrators. I'm making a firm commitment to support our teachers in reducing their workload so they can focus on actual academics such as reading, writing, math, science, and history. We also must restore all steps in pay for every teacher in the district. Pay raises have to be budgeted in every year. In the Navy, I was paid on a similar scale to what teachers experience. I expected to move up that scale every year, but I also expected the base pay of that scale to be raised every year. That should be our goal. I have a diverse background living on both U.S. coasts, Hawaii, Guam, and in Europe. I've visited and worked with people from many different nations and cultures. I have worked with and for many diverse people from all over the U.S., as well as immigrants from the Philippines, Dominican Republic, India, South Africa, Lebanon. From my experience, I feel we should value and appreciate diversity, but not force it. Helping people grow in potential was instilled in me from an early age. My career in the Navy allowed me to be mentored myself and to have the opportunity to help develop others into confident and strong leaders. The last 4 years, I've been fortunate to volunteer as a mentor to the district-wide high school robotics team that each season builds a robot from scratch. In running for the board, I hope to continue being a part of the team
Thank you. Your time
that
is
builds
up.
up all students in the district. Thank you.
Next we welcome Jared Pillsbury.
Good evening, Board. First, I want to direct a comment to Director Ponder. I had sent an email to you last night in a follow-up to work that you've been assigned that was talked about with Director Bertrand from months ago. Hopefully, I can get a courtesy of a reply. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Next, Dr. Rumpus, I had sent an email to you about a matter of safety concerning the last meeting. I'm hoping for a courtesy of a reply to that email as well. Next up, I want to talk a little bit about booing and heckling. I'm in various conversations with folks around the district, and I know that they feel it's gotten out of hand. I appreciate Dr. Rumpus's comments at the last meeting about it. Obviously, neither I nor anyone has total control over this room, but I do understand that it's troublesome, and I don't condone it. For those who have felt heckled and intimidated before, I can only humbly apologize. I don't go in for it, but I can't control what happens in this room, nor can anyone else. I hope it stops. That being said, in a different space, in a different time, in August of 2021, I got up to a different meeting space, gave comments, as did another parent, as did a COVID survivor, and 2 doctors. They shared their stories, and they received heckling and boos from one side of the audience that didn't necessarily go in for what they were saying. So unfortunately, this has been around for a time. Anyway, just a plea to the community at large that we don't have to go in for that stuff. If there's something you disagree with, find your words. That's the best I can say about that. My last point that I'd like to make is in response to a February 5th editorial that was submitted to Mid Rivers Magazine by one Ken Gontars of the Francis Howell Families PAC. Ken Gontars, in response to his editorial, I'm just putting this out there, I've submitted it to the magazine. I have no idea if they'll publish it. Ken Gontars is president of the Francis Howell Families PAC, an organization that believes in kitty litter conspiracies, and whose 2023 candidate and one of their newly endorsed candidates agreed public education is trash, and that the teachers union is, quote, pure unadulterated evil, end quote, in a recent radio interview. Ken's family contributed over $20,000 to the last Board of Ed race last cycle, and hopefully with signs and spreading their hateful message on talk radio, they hope to make you forget how their preferred office holders have done nothing to address real issues like attracting and retaining quality staff. You know, teachers. Those are those people they claim to be for, despite the radio interview. Mr. Gontars went on in his editorial to complain about gaslighting and express concerns over lawsuits that could be leveled against the district. He failed to mention he himself sued the district. Ken has been going on about critical race theory for years now. I have not seen one army of cultural Marxists terrorizing any such neighborhoods in the Francis Howell School District. What I have seen is a board favored by this PAC ignoring stakeholders.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Up next, we welcome Stephen Blair.
If you love something, you protect it. Last week, a board member and a board candidate were interviewed by a radio host. The radio host called public school systems trash. A Francis Howell Families candidate nodded their head in agreement. Later, the host called the NEA pure, unadulterated evil. Both the Francis Howell Families persons smiled in support. You clap for teachers here, but we hear how you talk about teachers with your friends. If you love something, you protect it. If someone called somebody you love trash or pure evil, you would stand up for them. I'm waiting to hear somebody stand up to the radio host and tell him he's wrong. Those views are extreme views, and they do not represent the majority of the red, blue, purple, or none of the above people in this district. We might agree on nothing else besides this, that the Francis Howell School District is a treasure for the whole community, and it is not trash. The Bryan Middle School is a treasure. Did you see the performance of Music Man Jr.? It was great. Hollenbeck, Seeger, Barnwell, Francis Howell Middle School are all treasures, and you should hear it more often. Francis Howell High is a treasure. Francis Howell Central is a treasure. Francis Howell North and Union are treasures, and everyone inside them. The elementary schools and their teachers are treasures. Those teachers don't hate anything except for glitter. Henderson and Fairmount, Becky David and Daniel Boone, Causley and Central, Warren and John Weldon, Independence, Henderson, Fairmount, and Harvest Ridge are all doing beautiful work. They are all treasures. And teachers are doing all of this while being underpaid by thousands of dollars per student. And they are accused by one of your board members of being greedy for wanting the pay that they have earned. They are doing this while somehow being both micromanaged and ignored. There's a 5th grade math book that is asking students questions about DVDs and VHS tape, but that hasn't been a priority. Francis Howell Families will put $10,000 of mailers into people's hands to try to get them to forget about the last 10 months. Don't let them get you to forget. If students and teachers were a priority, you would have heard something about it over the last 10 months, but you haven't. You have 10 months of records to run on, and you have nothing. This election is about teachers. They're going to try to make the election about hot-button issues and culture wars. This election is about teachers, and Carolee Owens and I believe teachers should be paid more, trusted more, and respected more. And it is not happening underneath the current leadership. That's why they're not endorsing you. The last 10 months of inactivity and the last 10 days of silence have told us what all of you associated with Francis Howell Families believes. If we don't get this culture right, nothing else will matter. And if you are red, blue, purple, or none of the above, if you just believe that Francis Howell School District is a treasure and it's not trash, it's one of the very best things about living here in this place, then I invite you to vote for Carolee Owens and myself on April the 2nd. We will protect what we love.
Up next, we welcome Grayson Justice.
Good evening and happy Black History Month. Before I went to my speech, I want to say congratulations to my mom, Amy Savorak, who was working here at Francis Howell School District for 21 years. So, Mom, if you're watching, congratulations. Elective, an opinion course of study. Let me say that again. Elective, an optional course of study. During the past months, the board majority doesn't even know the definition of this word for the Black Lit and history courses. Instead, they either want to cancel it or whitewash it. This board wastes precious time and energy on culture war policies instead of genuine issues like teacher pay and hiring, upgrading the schools, and representation of all students. On April 2nd, vote for the candidates who doesn't put out culture war policies, bullying and harassing students with investigations, and not communicating with the community and other board members. Vote for the candidates who support all students, teachers, and staff, put out plans to help schools for the better, and communicate with the community and other school board members. And I agree with Isaac, who was our last student representative in our last meeting, that there should be a Latin history and elective courses. And I think there should be an LGBTQIA history and history and lit elective courses in high schools. And I would love to have those happening soon. Thank you.
Up next, we welcome Chris Hyman.
Thank you. Legacy may come from one's character, reputation, and the life you lead, setting an example for others and to guide their futures. We are a district whose structure is in disarray. We have board members going on talk shows that absolutely trash public schools and teacher unions. We had a board member who voted to do away with curriculum. When they publicly admitted out loud, they didn't know what they were voting for. We have a board member who made a promise to create a work group, and it's 6 months later, and we've heard nothing about it. We have a board member who's called parents rumors and pedophiles. We have a board member who doesn't trust that our teachers have the ability to teach a 15-year-old how to write a cohesive email. You just heard a candidate this year who wants you to believe that the board has any say in teacher negotiation process. That's false. And another who wants us to get back to the basics. You just heard we had a gentleman in the district who recently penned a letter to the editor asking we leave politics at the door, yet he installed 5 of you in front of me with the help of local and state politicians who would admittedly show up here more and more every month. That same gentleman's PAC and its nonprofit arm are currently floating on social media a personal attack against one of our teachers that is disgusting. She was told to write a curriculum. Which brings me to our admin. When will our director of curriculum get up and speak out loud for her teachers and our curriculum? When will our superintendent get up and protect every student's right to an enriched education and protect our teachers' abilities, time, and money? Director Bertrand, what is your legacy going to be? Are you going to lead a quid pro quo PAC? Quid pro quo board? Beholden to a political PAC? Or can you hold these guys accountable and protect the reputation of our district? What will your legacy be? Francis Howell is in disarray. Will any of you stand up to protect our district, even if your voice shakes? Thank you.
Up next, we welcome Harry Harris.
I knew you would know me. First of all, I wanted to say thank you to the young ladies who were here earlier. I was really listening to their speech, and I heard how they talked about their group forming because they didn't see equity, and they didn't see people in the field that they wanted to go into who looked like them. And I feel like we've talked about this quite a bit. And I'm glad that the kids are all right and they get it. So I'm hoping that we can get it. I did want to speak tonight to ask that you all pull it together. These last few weeks have looked like nothing I've seen before, and I'd really like to never see it again. We don't have to be on the same ideological page to know that it's unacceptable for a board member to go on social media, name specific members of our educational staff, and speak badly about them. Director Pushkar did that this week, and I find it repulsive. Yeah, you did. In addition, this last week, Director Cook took the opportunity to speak ill of the educators that put together the Black Voices Matter March back in 2021, saying, and I quote, "Before I was on the board, a group of Francis Howell staff organized a political protest and shut down Mid-Rivers Mall Drive. While twisting it to fit your narrative, you lied that it was a political protest. Not that it was a march over the frustrations regarding the George Floyd murder. I know this because I was there, and I don't think that you were. Not that it was put together by educators who saw and heard the frustrations that the student population was expressing. You decided to call it a political protest on social media. So yet again, trying to vilify our teachers. I heard all three candidates tonight talk about let's treat our teachers and our staffs better. They don't need an email talking about how great they are. They need us to publicly stand up and not degrade them. They need the rest of us to back them. We don't need this kind of vilifying of the people who we entrust our kids to be with every day. If I thought that way about our staffs, I wouldn't send my 13-year-old to school. I love the teachers in our district, even the ones that I may not agree with. So it's time that we stop bullying our own employees. Our teachers and administrators and anyone on the district payroll deserves better than publicly trashing them by sitting board members or anybody else. Director Bertrand is president. I'm asking for you to get this under control and that an apology be issued to our staffs. Thank you.
Next, we welcome King Gottars.
Board Superintendent, this evening I invite our patrons to celebrate, acknowledge, and credit this board for the notable list of accomplishments it's achieved over the last 10 months. Board, you have worked diligently this year to support teachers, to exercise fiscal responsibility, to promote academic excellence, to provide greater transparency to our community and our parents, and to address delicate, diverse social issues. For teachers, you have restored recess paraprofessionals in elementary schools, providing relief to the heavy and demanding workload of our teachers. You negotiated a new teacher's contract that provided 2 steps along the teacher's salary schedule in 2022 and 1 step in 2023, along with an increase in base pay. You installed school resource officers into more schools with the goal of getting them in all, providing additional protection for our kids. You placed American flags in every classroom, instilling a sense of patriotism once again in our schools. Regarding academic excellence, you made substantial progress towards correcting the reading instruction curriculum, utilizing the science of reading research methodology, which focuses more on decoding words and phonics instead of guessing on pictures. You further lighten the load of workload for teachers by creating new procedures for giving surveys. You focus more on academics by eliminating time spent on Character Plus curriculum and on diversity, equity, and inclusion. You avoided buying the costly iReady math curriculum for grades K through 5, while highly touted, has no definitive evidence that it is any better. With iReady being significantly more expensive than the current math curriculum, you saved the district significant dollars. You're considering a policy requiring middle school and high school students to be taught the truths of communism and how nearly 100 million deaths have resulted because of that ideology. You supported a new, robust Black history curriculum while rescinding the divisive Southern Poverty Law Center social justice of the old curriculum. And finally, you conducted a first reading of Bathroom Policy 2116, calling for the security and the privacy for all pupils, where students must use the bathrooms of their biological birth or use of a single-use bathroom. Board, well done. Our community thanks you, salutes you for continuing to make Francis Howell schools tops in the state. Thank you.
Up next, we welcome Rosemary Tuvuno.
The booing of speakers last week by both sides was so embarrassing. I'm aching for civility. I want there to be ethical growth in our community, not just in audiences, but by their leaders, with our children on playgrounds. I want to make personal, moral, I want our kids and our adults making personal, moral decisions and not just what someone else tells them or gives them a limited choice on. Our kids are too smart for other people's choosing only. I was a 32-year-old, I wish I was, okay, 40 years ago I was, okay. So I was a teacher in the district for 32 years. I was on band booster committees, I was in PTO. I had the pleasure of working with magnificent parents, children who love music and some pursued it. I got to know the way our district works and still so proud to be a teacher in this district. We had unions that represented, and I know we're not unions, but we're an organization, okay? But we had leaders who would work for us to try to bring us good raises, but then they would turn to a board of education and carry on conversations about what were critical issues and how they could be helped. The students last week who spoke at the Board of Education meeting have my respect and reverence because they don't want their peers, their families, their teachers, and administrators thinking of them as only a gender or a race or a culture or a social status or some political division. They know universality is what we need, not cultural division. We need to be uniting behind what we know as ethical and moral human beings we can be proud to represent and don't have to go like this as someone on the radio is wearing a Francis House sweatshirt. Okay, got that out of my system. All right. I am concentrated in the midst of creating an environment where certain topics are not to be discussed. Maybe they're going to be suicide, gender identity, and race. We're teaching of historical events like the Tulsa Race Massacre and the causes of the Civil War are rewritten or excluded from the curriculum, where political agendas, not the students' needs, are governing policies.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Do I get 6?
Up next, we welcome FHA.
That was a legitimate question. The website isn't working.
Good evening. Over the last several weeks, teachers in Francis Howell have faced personal attacks from our own district. As I mentioned last board meeting, Director Pushkar called for the teachers' arrest, naming them in a Facebook group for completing a lawful request with the district under the Sunshine Law. In another attack, Director Pushkar posted an email correspondence to Facebook in an effort to malign a teacher and the process for the original Black History and Black Literature classes, which were already eliminated by this board and are being rewritten with no guarantee their curriculums will be approved. Then Jane Pushkar appeared with the current board candidate on local radio show where the host disparaged public education, calling it trash and calling the NEA evil to its core, all while Jane and the current board candidate shook their heads in agreement. The day that FHEA entered salary negotiations with administrators and Board of Education observers, Director Cook posted a fable about greed, and at the end of the post said, "Moral, it is not wise to be too greedy." Is this what you think of our teachers? We are the lowest paid and highest performing district in this county. We aren't greedy. We are trying to ensure that our children have great teachers every day, all day. At the end of the 22-23 school year, we had 82 resignations and 52 retirements. FHEA can't help but wonder, as we have begun the staffing process for the 24-25 school year, how many educators will we lose this year? The same as last year or more? Who would want to teach here if the Board of Education is attacking its teachers? And how do we fix it? So we can attract the best candidates for our vacancies of a deputy superintendent, elementary content lead, or director of technology, and to hire maybe 140 teachers or more? How do we keep highly trained master teachers who have helped FHSD reach the pinnacles of success from retiring early when they could still have 5 or more years? How do we keep our younger teachers who will carry on the legacy of excellence from leaving because they don't feel safe in this district? Here's something to think about. You can't pay people enough to make them stay where they feel disrespected, ridiculed, and even hated. And who would want to come to Francis Howell with this type of reputation? Do better. Thank you.
Next, we welcome Pispa.
Good evening, President Bertrand, Superintendent Rumpus, Cabinet, Board, and guests. Firstly, we want to recognize all our teachers and support staff of the year winners. Your passion and work ethic are a thing to be celebrated. Thank you for all you do in our schools. All you have gone above and beyond and deserve all the recognition. We hope you truly feel appreciated for all that you've done to support the kids here at Francis Howell. Secondly, we want to give a big thank you to the groups of custodians coming together to do tile maintenance in New North. The building is really taking form, it's come a long way, and I'm excited for more people to witness what's in store. It's truly beautiful. We want to also thank all of the support staff that are dealing with shortages. Flu and illness has been on the rise, requiring a lot of flexibility, teamwork, and commitment. It's February, and we would like to recognize Black History Month. Unity is a beautiful thing. Desmond Tutu's quote, "My humanity is bound up in yours, for we can only be human together," speaks to that. We have to work together in unison. We move forward in unison. One Howell. Thank you, and have a great night.
Board, I'd like a motion to approve the consent agenda for February 8th, 2024, as presented.
So moved.
Director Cook. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. All right. Board, I'd like a motion to approve the certified and non-certified contract language for 24-25 school year as presented. Second. Harmon? Discussion board?
Thank you, Aaron, for pulling the contracts that I asked you to pull. The reason I did that was because I think we need some legal advice on putting in some additional language to these contracts that we don't currently have. I didn't read I didn't get to the agenda, the entire agenda all this weekend, so that I apologize for the late notice for pulling. I think if we put some additional language in there, which basically lines out some quantitative measures, it gives us the opportunity and the impetus to get this done. It gives us full transparency with the public. And so I'd like to answer any questions that anybody may have of me about.
Ms. Simpkins, can you maybe give some background on these contracts, one for the public, but also to make sure all the boards align what they're used for and how we go about utilizing them?
Sure. We do have our legal counsel review the contract language every year, so that is a standard practice for us. It has not been a common practice to include quantitative data in an employment contract. It does include language that the leader agrees to comply with all requirements stated in their written performance standards. And so those types of things would be more common to include in an annual evaluation for the administrator, so that each leader's performance measure could be specific to the needs of that building and to what's happening in that particular leader's employment status. It would be difficult to include any kind of quantitative data in the standard language that we use. The contracts are provided through Frontline Central. The language is similar for all, so that we're making sure that we are being consistent and not putting ourselves at any risk for any kind of discriminatory practices. We do provide one-year contracts to our administrators at this level. We do yearly evaluation, sorry, I couldn't say that word, and address performance concerns with leaders as necessary throughout that process. As we monitor student data in each building through our SIP and our regular data visits, we have conversations with supervisors and address principal performance or director performance in that way. Because this is it would be such an uncommon practice, I do believe that it might cause our leaders to look for employment elsewhere, or maybe even cause new hires to refrain from applying if that was in their contract noted in that way. I think we can accomplish that goal by using our evaluation tool and our performance evaluation. We do have quantitative measures. Our performance is measured just in our SIP SMART goals, attendance, discipline data, academic performance. We use SMART goals in those areas, and our district directors, our superintendent who do those evaluations, use that information when they are informing their decisions in a performance evaluation. Such things like climate surveys have quantifiable data that we also use. And we use that, just throughout our conversations with our leaders to have coaching conversations and then address any performance issues as they arise. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Well, somewhat. The only issue that I see with performance, it's putting those quantitative measures in performance that you don't know until a full year has passed whether or not they've adhered to them. And as far as the discriminatory language, that's why we're getting legal input to be sure that we follow all the rules and guidelines that we're expected to follow. My reason for doing this is that I want it to be known up front that we do have these wishes for adherence to quantitative performance measures, which I understand have not been put into contracts before. But I think I'd like to change that, make it known up front, so that everybody knows. And the same people, there's always going to be people, I think, employees that look at a certain contract, and some will like it and some won't. And those that won't, obviously, they may not come here even if there's not. They may not want to come here even if there's not anything in the contract, or they may want to come here because there's something in the contract that would actually end up protecting them. So my other reason for doing this is that it gives full transparency to the public and to the board, and also has the board, pushes the board, I shouldn't use the word push, it also requires that the board make a decision within 30 days, which would not hold up any contract signing, at least that I know of. And I just think it's a good practice to follow. I've always seen contracts with quantitative measures in them, and I believe that should be done.
Additional discussion or questions, board?
I have a question. I'm looking at this. It looks like on consent, we went ahead and approved some of the salary contact language already. So exactly which ones are we pulling? Just the administrators and the directors?
There's three, Janet. The one was a non-certified director, certificated, non-certificated director, a certificated director, and a certificated administrator contract.
Right, I see that. I guess I'm wondering, what is it about those three that are different from all the other ones? I would like to understand.
Well, they're not teachers. I mean, I don't know what question you're really trying to ask.
Well, I just want to know, why are we doing this towards our administration? I guess I'm looking for, as an administrator of the district, I mean, we have content leaders, we have everything. What kind of quantitative data can you put in when she's out mentoring teachers? That's what I'm struggling with, Ms. Pushkar.
Okay, I understand you. I appreciate your comments. Basically, some of those, I don't want to say right now because it hasn't been run past the attorneys, and I don't want to make any commitments or sound any alarms that are unnecessary. Every contract for administrative personnel that I've seen has had some sort of quantitative measures. In this case, like I said, I don't want to sound alarms, but there are quantitative goals that this district has. I think that those contracts should be well aligned with those. I know I'm being vague.
Right.
Yeah. I'm trying to answer your question.
Okay, I get it.
I just got a quick question. Is there any school districts that has this that you know of?
To be honest with you, Chad, I haven't checked with anybody.
Have any of you heard of it?
Chad, I think it's a very uncommon practice. I'm not aware of any contracts that have that, but I did this late conversation. I did not do that research, but in my experience, that has not been something that's been in an employment contract. It has been goals that are set during the evaluative process.
As you know, Chad, we were asked to just approve the template, and the only change was going to be the 24-25 school year. My concern was that if I have things, or the board has things that they want to quantify as far as performance, this gives us 30 days to make that decision. It could be, Chad, that we don't come to any agreement, but it could be that we do.
Other commentary, board? I guess my thing, I agree with you in the sense that we want quantitative measures, and it sounds like we have those within other methods and systems, and I agree with you. There are a number of contracts that I've seen as well that have measures in them, but generally when I see those, they're more project-based kind of things. If you have deliverables and you have to deliver those deliverables, not like an employment type contract per se. Just throwing that out there. Other questions, commentary, board? All right, so we were voting on a motion to approve the certified and non-certified contract language for 2024-2025 school year as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
Ayes have it. Board, I'd like a motion to approve the January monthly financial report as presented.
So moved.
There's Dave seconds. Ponder. Ms. Embry.
Good evening, board. So, Ms. Hepler's pulling up a very brief presentation for you. And I think I've shared with you before that I've learned with my eyesight and looking in that direction, I need to have papers in front of me, so I'm better equipped this evening. So I will remind you, of course, I typically provide you with discussion objectives, and I won't read those, but I will also share that all of our regular financial reports have been posted. I'll draw your attention also to the budget amendment and transfer report that we're posting each month. There are no budget amendments or transfers for this month. We know that we'll be bringing more forward to you as we continue our journey in reviewing our current year budget and getting that aligned. We also have posted an updated bond program financial report that's through January 31 for you and the public to view as well. I'll highlight too, I shared it with you in the December report, our operating trajectory and our fund balance. You'll note in our current month's financial report, we're showing our fund balance percentage ending this current year at just under 30%. And the reminder that much of that is relative to the ESSER funding. So remember that there's $4.86 million that we've received for this year's budget that we will not receive moving forward. So we have that temporary spike in our fund balance percentage. So moving forward, I do also want to mention that when you consider the changes that may be brought forward for you relative to the operating trajectory and the ending fund balance percentage, based on current year data, so it changes every year because it's always relative to the fund balance and the total expenditures in operating funds, approximately $2.3 million of either increased revenue or reduced expenditures equates to 1% of our fund balance. So moving forward, reminding you again of some of those other assumptions that were included in that December report. Flat enrollment projections for FY25 through 28. We'll be taking a closer look at that as we hone in on our revenues for the upcoming year. Also, that reminder that the state adequacy target is increasing in a two-phase process, half of it in FY25 and the other half in FY26. But we currently are approaching that in a realistic view. I don't want to say conservative, but we are only applying a 50% funding level of that second phase. Also, we've incorporated a 2% increase on assessment relative to St. Charles County data. We know there will be a likely downward adjustment relative to Senate Bill 190 in the coming assessment years, and hope that that will be offset by new construction values. And then the governor, of course, in the current year had recommended the full transportation funding, so that is still in place. So this next slide actually provides you with a snippet from the DESE January memo. So every month we receive a financial memo from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And the news on this one is that we are being told, based on the sales tax revenue, our Prop C revenue at the local level should increase. So the sales tax is that 1 cent statewide tax that is then funneled to the state of Missouri so that they can distribute it based on basically pupil attendance. And so that's how we receive that. And so in FY24, we are expecting now that that will increase from 1,360 per WADA to 1,374. We'll continue to watch and monitor to make sure that that really comes to fruition, and in the coming months would bring you a budget amendment for that. And also a reminder, it's a kind of a big deal when we talk about the state adequacy target increasing, because we've basically remained the same for multiple years, but it has been fully funded since FY20. This next slide highlights for you other changes. And so, and actually I have another slide that shows the governor's recommendations, but the Proposition C revenue will increase further. So that is included in that report from the department. Also, we are looking at adjustments for operating expenditures. So we'll continue to work toward that end. And I'll mention to you that the capital transfer threshold can be adjusted as we look at our fund balance percentage and where we might give and take in terms of ensuring that we remain stable throughout the multiple years. So this now is another snippet from the governor's budget recommendations, and that's how they word it when they place it in the January memo from DESE, that this is the governor's budget recommendation. Of course, there are a lot of days and months of the legislative session that need to progress for us to have any assurance of where this will land. But the governor has indicated, based on budget information, that the state adequacy target, that the Proposition C would go up even further. So currently 1,360 and go to that 1,513 level. And then, again, that reminder on the state adequacy target, that's still included in there. And you can read the footnotes that they provide. They also state that these amounts will only be achieved if revenue is available to fund them. So that's why we're cautiously optimistic, is what I would say. So for budget presentations coming up, I had indicated to you back a few months ago when I provided you with a budget calendar for the year. The work continues behind the scenes, working with Director of Finance Jacob Myers and other administrators throughout the district. We will be bringing you presentations by fund in the coming months. So during the March meeting, we have scheduled a review of the debt service fund and the health fund. While we can tell you what we need to budget next year for the debt service fund, we don't know yet what we need to budget for the health fund, but I'll provide you with some statistical information just so that you can have a better understanding as we journey forward. Then during the April meeting, we'll bring you the capital fund and bond fund information. May 16th would be the general fund, teachers fund, and provide you with a revenue update. Then in June, we would provide that comprehensive revenue and expenditure budget presentation, followed by seeking your approval during the June 20 meeting. As a reminder, budgets must be approved prior to the start of a new fiscal year to be able to operate. These next two slides provide you with information relative to the refunding issue that you approved, and that sale was conducted. The final sale occurred February 7th, so this is just-in-time information. And as you can see, the district sold $20,590,000 of general obligation refunding bonds. The most important thing to highlight is that this was done with an accelerated payoff. So oftentimes, whether you're doing a refi of your house or we're doing a refunding of debt, you might decide to keep your payment length the same. But what we've done is we pulled back and we're paying it down as quickly as possible. And the ultimate result then is a savings of $2,063,693. And that's accelerating the payoff by 36 months. This next slide shows you that acceleration of the debt payoff, and you can see the before and after of that. So then the last slide I'm providing you, and I won't provide you an update on this any further publicly until it's time to bring you the bid recommendation, but we adjusted the pre-proposal meeting, so I wanted to be sure and say that publicly in the event any potential vendor who might bid might be paying attention to these meetings. So this is the official bid calendar. We worked with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education School Nutrition Services Office. They had to review our RFP after we compiled all the data, and they did that. Then we did push out those notifications. They provide a list of all the vendors that are qualified to bid. I did learn, though, that there could be some that have been added, and we don't know about those. So it is important that we continue with our public notification, and so we have it posted on our website as well. So we have that mandatory meeting on February 16th. We'll go through all the process and review all the bids and conduct interviews as necessary, and then we will be prepared to provide you a recommendation April 18th. As a reminder, our current food service provider is Sodexo. That concludes my update. Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Questions, board? Ms. Embry, can you remind me and the public, with this accelerated bond schedule, what's the estimated payoff date that these are all?
For all debt?
Yes. Well, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay. Let me see. I might have something. I don't have it memorized.
Okay, well.
I can certainly send it to you, but I also have a document that we compiled for last year. I don't know that I'm going to be able to pull it up quickly. So it looks to me like 2042 would be our payoff. That's not unusual because if you enter into debt when it's, one thing that I do typically, and I can do that for you when I talk about debt, would be to show you how much would be paid off within different windows of time, like in a 10-year window, that kind of thing. So happy to do that. I believe that's correct. I'll verify that, but that's what I have in this chart before me.
Other questions, board?
I'd like to ask a question about the health fund.
Yes.
Any pre-read on any information how much it's going up or down, or?
Not currently.
Okay.
That was explored, in time for the December
Right.
presentation, and at that point, the information led us to believe 8% likely, absent plan design changes. But we'll continue to engage with Marsh McClellan Agency and monitor that and bring you information when we have it.
Again, excellent presentation.
Thank you.
All right, motion to approve the January monthly financial review as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Board would like a motion to approve the purchases over $25,000 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Board, we have a motion to approve the purchases over $2,500, number 6, Curriculum Associates as presented.
So moved.
Yeah, I can share a little information with you about the request. This is for our middle school math intervention. So we currently use Houghton, Mifflin, Harcourt, Math 180. I'm of the Let's Keep It Simple camp, so we'll call it Math 180 for ease. We use that tool with our middle school math intervention classes. We've been having some internal conversations about the success of this intervention and possibly exploring some potential alternates that might produce some better results. At the same time, we recently learned that the resource was going to have a significant cost increase if we chose to continue using Math 180 that we currently have. And so for those reasons, we decided it was time to reevaluate the current resource and look at the options that would be available for that middle school math intervention class. So members of our curriculum department gathered input from other districts to see what they were using, where they were seeing success with their students in terms of impacting student growth. And those conversations led us to look deeper at 3 different resources. Our content leader facilitated the process, used our typical resource selection process, worked with some middle school Math 180 teachers. They engaged in the vendor presentations, evaluated them based on our predetermined criteria, and at the end of the process, iReady was our top choice, which is the recommendation that you have tonight in your memo. The intervention will be used with our math interventionist at the 5 middle schools. Those individuals will receive 3 full days of professional learning that will be spread throughout the school year to support them as they implement this new program. As outlined in the memo, the request includes the cost of the teacher resources, both print and online, the student resources, both print and online, excuse me, and the professional development that I mentioned. By switching to the new resource, not only do we anticipate seeing stronger student growth, but it's also about a 44% cost savings compared to what we would have spent if we continued with our current resource. Like many of our resources, I just want to mention that this purchase, because it includes those online materials, there is a recurring cost that we would experience each year. We have that figured into our annual budget. That would also be true with Math 180. There's a license for that as well. We'll continue to monitor the impact of the intervention and the resource. We track the growth of our students who participate in the intervention. We analyze our assessments both through the intervention tool and then just in general the benchmark assessments of kids who are in the intervention compared to students who are not. What does that growth look like as we compare those, the end of year assessment data. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Dr. Lambers is here if you have any questions.
Questions, board, comments?
Appreciate you pulling this one. I asked for it to be pulled up. My concern really was, and it also ties back to our the middle school intervention teachers that we approved last month. We mentioned a lot about monitoring the progress, and I guess what I would like to ask for is nothing complicated, but kind of a simple plan of how that's going to be done, and then what success would look like. For instance, if we've been using Math 180 for the recent past, and we have not had middle school intervention, dedicated middle school intervention teachers, and we're seeing, I don't want to speculate, whatever the growth is, X. I think it would be reasonable to expect now that we have dedicated teachers, we have substantially better growth. That's the reason I think we all approve that. But what do we expect? And that way we can have something measurable next year as we look at both those positions and then also the renewal of. Unfortunately, this isn't very scientific because now we're going to have 2 variables, the math intervention and also a new resource. But that's where we're at. So that was my only reason for wanting some discussion on this is hopefully we can see some sort of a rubric on how this will be measured, so that next year we can have some quantifiable.
Sure.
So, thank you.
Vice President Cook, we'd be happy to provide that. I do just want to point out, as you acknowledge, that there are two different variables here. It's new positions, it's also a new resource, that I believe it'll be challenging to necessarily make that determination at this time next year, that it might, often when you implement a new program, there's an implementation dip you might experience. And so just recognize that it might take us, next year will be baseline data, but then we'll have something to compare that to as we move forward.
Sure, yeah, I think if all that's spelled out in the plan with the rationale, that would be helpful for me and the public.
Additional questions, discussion board? All right. Motion to approve the purchase of $2,500 over $25,000 number 6 curriculum associates as presented. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Next, I'd like a motion to approve the purchase over $25,000, number 11, International Language Center and Language Access, Multicultural People, LAMP, as presented. Second.
Good evening, Board.
Dr. Vanderbilt.
I'm here to speak to any questions the Board may have. These are services that are provided to a little over 200 of our families, speaking over 25 different languages. Each year we anticipate what the amount we're going to need, and this year we see that by the time this quarter ends, we may need some additional funds to cover some unforeseen costs. After getting this request tonight, I kind of went through and looked at what those costs may have been this year and saw some expenses that we may not have normally seen in the past, things like a new reading book that went out to families because of the new reading legislation, the letters that went home. There was actually a book that had to be translated in several languages. That was a little over $22,000. So there's certain big ticket items that came through this year that we would anticipate in the future. But we still need to be able to provide interpreters for parent-teacher conferences, special education meetings, and then just the letters that go home, enrollment letters, update the handbooks, things like that. So we just want to make sure we covered for the rest of the year.
Yeah, thank you for pulling this, Adam. I was one that requested this. The reason that I did this, Dr. Vanderpool, it's my understanding that not all of these services are done in person, meaning interpretive information from a person that doesn't speak English. I understand that, but it's also my understanding that some of these services are written, and my concern is that there are programs that will do such a thing for free. I mean, you can get things translated for free.
Right. So when you look at the items that we have translated, there are things like the student handbooks for every building, the enrollment guides. And you're right, our teachers will sometimes use, and parents will use like Google Translate or some other systems. And that can interpret a real rough message to families. But it is not 100%. Those messages don't send the same information as, so we need to make sure that there's a person reviewing that and actually translating the same information that all our families would get in English.
Do you know what percentage of those charges are for written and what percentage is for oral interpretive?
I don't have that right in front of me, but I could definitely get that to you. I've got a spreadsheet that lists out all of the services that we provided throughout the year and every cost. And I would say there's probably more this year in written because of a couple of big things that we've had to send home.
Yeah.
But all of those are going to have some human eye on them to make sure that they send the same message.
Okay, well, I appreciate if you could give me those numbers, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Just to clarify, like you said, I just want to make sure I'm viewing this right, make sure it's quite clear. So like, we approved a blanket bucket earlier in the year. You've kind of run through there, gotten towards the end of that, so we're looking to improve to finish this out through the rest of the year, kind of like we would with fuel for transportation.
Yeah, that's a similar, yes.
Any other questions, board?
Yeah, just real quick, so is this year a learning lesson for probably next year?
I looked back at the budget for the past few years, and we have always budgeted on the high end. Even this year we have, but then we typically spend less. So what we brought to you in June is close to what we spent last year. So we didn't want to ask for more than we needed, but we had budgeted a little more just in case this came up. So we were prepared for this expense if it came up.
So voting to approve the purchase over $25,000, number 11, International Language Center and Language Access Multicultural People lamp as presented. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Next, board, I'd like a motion to approve the construction bid recommendation for the security vestibule project for 5 sites to Integra Incorporated as the lowest bid.
Before we start on this, I just want to make a comment real quick. I'm part of a company that was asked by several GCs to provide numbers. We did, and we're going to be discussing one of the GCs, and we did provide a number to them, so I'm going to back out of any discussion, and I'm going to abstain from any vote, so that to eliminate anybody saying there's a conflict with me.
Still looking for a first and a second.
I had a first.
Jan in the first. Director Ponder. Ms. Embry.
Good evening again. So yes, this evening we are bringing forward for your consideration the security vestibules bid. And as a reminder, this encompasses 5 separate campuses that include 3 early childhood centers and Henderson Elementary and Fairmount Elementary. Again, I've provided you with discussion objectives, and I'll turn right to that. As noted in the chart provided, the bid opening results that occurred January 25, 2024 are noted. There were 4 companies that provided bids, and the bids, as noted, are higher than the cost estimate that had been provided to you for recommendation and moving forward with the bid during the December 21 meeting. I have noted the percentages exceeding the cost. That does include the alternate that is listed there, and the alternate is relative to the ADA faculty toilets and finishes at Henderson Elementary. We did ask Honer and Associates, our architectural firm, to engage with the low bidder to ascertain what are the primary areas that were the gaps relative to the estimate versus the bid that came forward. I should have also mentioned the previous slide. I had included that the bids were priced within 34% of one another. So they are all higher, and they are relative to market changes, as I'll describe for you here. So Honer and Integra did meet to identify the primary areas. Those are listed on the slide, currently on the screen. And the first one is the aluminum entrance framing estimate, using the November 2023 price point of $170 per square foot. Changes in the market then resulted in a bid of $440 per square foot. So the total estimate of $221 grew to a total approximate bid of $500,000. The second item noted is relative to electrical work, and the total estimate provided by HII is $122,000, and the total approximate bid $350,000, again due to the copper market impact. The last one was an error that occurred. Air handling units estimate for Central School Road and Hackman Road Early Childhood Centers were not provided to the administration nor included in the total estimate reported to the board due to timing of the field work. So while the estimate was brought to you based on a moment in time, new information came through the field work of the mechanical engineers, and it was added into the construction documents for bid purposes, but not circled back to bring it forward to the board for awareness of the additional $150,000. We know that this has been, based on discussions, a high priority project to affect change in these buildings and provide the final security vestibules needed in the district. And so I'm bringing to you considerations and a recommendation that rebidding could result in a higher bid, could result in a lower bid, but the way this trend has been in our economy, it seems that everything is growing all the time. So dependent on market changes, primary supplies, and also construction timeline limitations could inflate the bid. And we know for a fact that if we do rebid, and that is an option, it will result in delaying the security vestibule work for 1 year. So for purposes of providing you a motion for a starting point for administration, we're recommending that the board approve the award of the security vestibule project to Integra Inc. in the amount of $1,663,846 base bid with performance bond and $98,000 bid alternate. Regarding next steps and also reminders, Honer and Associates has committed that they will have a third party perform costing for assurance of estimates for both the Henderson and Fairmount renovation and addition projects. As a reminder, the Henderson Elementary addition and renovation will be brought forward for your final consideration March 21, 2024, and then the bid will be let March 28th. Fairmount Elementary, the addition and renovation, the construction document phase will be provided to you during the April 18th meeting for the bid to be let May 2nd. And then following that, we would issue a request for qualifications for architectural services for future projects. We also have mentioned to you previously in other discussions that we are planning to work with you to schedule a work session to discuss other bond program projects for your consideration. So all of that is a recommendation at this time, and we certainly welcome your feedback as well as a decision on this current bid recommendation. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Clarifying question.
Yes.
Did I, excuse me, did I hear you say that if we don't move forward with Honer on these security vestibules for Henderson and Fairmont, that will delay us a year? Did I hear that or not?
That would be, well, I certainly am saying definitely on the security vestibules. I can't speak to the delay relative to Henderson Fairmount, but because a lot of the work needs to happen in the summertime, we could be at risk for that. Basically, we're focusing on getting in the schools and working toward accomplishing a lot of work during that time.
So that's not a definite. I mean,
we would need to explore that, but that would be my expectation.
Okay. Thanks, Carol.
Additional questions, board?
Yeah, I would like to have a kind of a comment and everything. The first thing I would like to say is being part of the Board of Education that went through this with Francis Howell North, and I do agree with that speaker that went deja vu. When I heard this, that's exactly what I thought. At that time, it was explained, the difference between it is the communication this time. And while I don't always agree with some decisions that are made, I would like to thank President Bertrand and everything for going through the processes, and Director Cook for going through and making sure that this time we did go through the processes. And as you can see, it still came over budgeted than what we expected. So the process is there, it's in place. We made changes based on what Superintendent Rumpus brought to us. And I think that, so I want people to know the transparency is there. While it's easy to be sitting in those seats out there and not up here, it's a very difficult decision to make when you have to do what's best for all kids. And the safety and security and the renovations of our buildings is what's best for those kids. So I have absolutely no qualms with voting yes for this project.
Now that you opened that door, Janet, yeah, I can say this was one of the biggest disappointments that I think I've had since I've been sitting here. And you're right, absolutely right. It's easy to be out on the other side and say, wow, you guys weren't watching. We were watching, and we all know we were watching, and it still happened.
Right.
I'm not sure that I'm not sure that I agree with, I guess, Honer's their discussion and reason why this all happened. I just, from the memo that they wrote, I didn't see 96% overrun right there, but who knows? But thank you for bringing it up, Janet.
I think as we're being asked to approve a project that's almost twice as much as what our architect estimated, the question I've struggled with since learning about the bids is whether I still would have voted to move forward with it this past several months if we knew the estimate was 1.7 all along. I think the answer is yes. At the end of the day, we identified this as a security priority, and that's that was our decision. The student safety obviously it's almost unspoken. It's such a top priority. So that said, we could spend billions to make every school like Fort Knox, but I think we all recognize that's not practical. But I do think that this particular improvement, if you will, is it's not overkill, and I think it's unfortunately necessary this 2024. The estimate is incorrect, and I think estimates by definition are just that, they're estimates. We all expect some variation. Nobody's going to guess it perfect. I think we typically expect within 10% is nice.
That would be fantastic.
But I think the common thread here is the architect. I'm sorry to say, so I'm happy to see that we're going to issue an RFQ for architectural services here in the near future, and we've had a long relationship with Honer, and obviously they're welcome to submit on our RFQ, but it might be time to, or I think it's time to just see what else is out there and go from there. So unfortunately with a program like Prop S, we have limited funds here, so this additional money means something isn't going to get done down the road. We're doing the safety aspects first. That's the portion of the money that reduces the risk to students the most. They don't like to be hot with air conditioning or cold with heaters, but we want them to be safe. I think typically I would like to see if this went over, what project on the back end at the bottom of the list is off the list. And unfortunately, we're still developing that list, as you alluded to. We have we need to have a workshop here to finish that. So I think this only delays that process a little more, as you have to recalculate. The administration has to revisit. That's very frustrating. But at the end of the day, the life safety is the aspect for me. And I understand we have asked, Carol, is that correct? If we can reduce scope.
Yes.
A few months ago, we already did some scope things here from the dais and tried to reduce a little bit of scope, so I like to think that we still save some money over what it would have been had we not done that, but I guess you never really know. But
Yeah, and the few options that were identified weren't really viable. I think I mentioned, an option could be to not accept the alternate bid. For that work, it's something that will need to be done to provide ADA compliance down the road as the future renovation happens. So it would basically shifted from one project to another and could potentially cost more at that point in time.
So I'll just say we're not really discussing Henderson and Fairmount, so I won't get into it too much, but those concern me, those estimates. I think we're all concerned. I'm concerned about it. I won't speak for anyone. With respect to some of the explanations for copper and aluminum, Director Ponder and I were just sitting here looking at the aluminum and copper histories, and I don't see it. They've been kind of volatile, but I don't know if that holds water. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what the reason was. It's over. It's a binary decision that we have to make here. Neither option is good, but at the end of the day, I think the student life safety is important. So reluctantly, I will support this.
Additional questions, board? Comments? Ms. Embry, seeing no other questions, I do have one. For the request for qualifications, is that going to require a board vote?
We would definitely, we don't need a board vote to let that process. Making you aware is really the focus. And then the way that works is you post a request for qualifications, you ultimately conduct interviews, and then bring a recommendation. Following that process and entering into a contract, at that juncture you negotiate fees. That's the typical process required for that.
I guess my only commentary to that is I would be supportive of moving quickly with going out for an RFQ for other architectural services.
Okay.
Board, seeing no other discussion or commentary, we have a motion to approve the construction bid recommendation for the security vestibules project for 5 sites to Integra as the lowest responsible bid. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Just for the public's viewing, we have a number of first reads both from curriculum and policy out there for people to review and offer any commentary to the district or board members as they see fit prior to second reading. And then up next, we have superintendent comments.
Thank you, President Bertrand. This month, we are celebrating Black History. This month provides a vital opportunity for us to honor the contributions and enduring legacy of Black Americans throughout history. We have events of celebration and learning that are taking place at all of our schools throughout this month, and I encourage our entire community to actively participate in these events and honoring and amplifying our Black Americans, both past and present. I want to thank our entire Francis Howell community for the incredible outpouring of support for both the Daniel Boone and Meadows Parkway families, and especially the Kaiser family following the tragedy in Defiance last month. Thank you to our principals, Kevin Armour and Mary Calkins and their staff, Mike Seeby, our Inspire and counseling teams, the PTOs, and the many other groups that came together and really supported our students and staff as they go through this grief, and for organizing fundraisers and other supportive events for the family. Thank you to our academic team for the curriculum review event that was held last week that you've heard mentioned. This was the second event that was held this year as part of our updated process. The team reviewed the results from over 203 different community surveys that were submitted. There were 43 staff surveys, and that feedback was used as part of the review process. It ultimately resulted in changes to several of the documents. 7 of them just saw simple punctuation or grammatical edits, but there were also some substantive content edits, and in one case, the removal of a unit. I just want people to understand that we appreciate the time they took to provide that input, and that the committee ultimately used that to bring forward the courses that were recommended to you tonight. I want to give you an update on Barnwell Middle Band Director Jared Broadbrooks, who I got to speak to you about last month, following his competition at the Olympic Marathon Trials this past weekend. Students and staff lined the halls and surprised him with a send-off last week, and then he headed to Florida where he competed. He finished 26th out of 150. His final time was 2 hours, 16 minutes, and 20 seconds, and while that wasn't enough to qualify for the Paris Olympics, he was only just a little bit more than 6 minutes behind the top finishers, which is pretty incredible. So again, we need to keep him here and not let him leave for a professional running career. I'm asking everyone here to tell their family and friends about the district's Meet FHSD recruitment event that's coming up on Saturday, March 9th. This is a great opportunity for any prospective job candidates to learn about teaching opportunities in the district, and no RSVP is required. Candidates can show up and learn more about the district, the positions that we have open, get to meet administrators from each of our buildings as well as throughout the district, have their resume reviewed. Our HR department puts a lot of time into preparing this, and we generally get to recruit a lot of candidates. So it starts at 9 a.m. at Francis Howell Central on Saturday, March 9th. This week is National School Counseling Week, and we're excited to recognize the work of every counselor we have here across the district. We could not have more dedicated staff in these roles, and we appreciate the way that they care for our students and our staff on a daily basis. And speaking of those incredible employees, I also want to take a moment to congratulate all of the schools. They've each now acknowledged Teachers and Support Staff Members of the Year. We will now, as a district, be selecting the District Support Staff and Teacher of the Year and announcing those in the near future. We thank all of our staff and especially those that have been recognized this year for the work that they do day in and day out to provide amazing learning opportunities for our students, additional supports for our students, and many of them providing clean and safe schools throughout the district. They will all be recognized at the Howell of Fame ceremony in May. Speaking of the Howell of Fame, those nominations continue to be open and will be through March 4th. Think of the many different parents, volunteers, community organizations, or staff members that go above and beyond and represent the very best of Howell. You can submit those nominations on the website, and we look forward to the committee selecting those winners here in the near future. Just a week ago today, many divers from our schools competed in the GAC Dive Championship at the Recplex. This was a great night, especially for Francis Howell High senior Larissa Garbarini, who earned a GAC Dive Championship with a record-breaking score of 472.6. This score not only earned her a conference championship in dive, but also broke the school record that had been in place since 2005. She now holds the 6th best score in the history of dive in the entire state of Missouri. Yesterday, we hosted our Citizens in Our Schools cohort. They had their 5th full-day program. The topic was classroom and curriculum, and the group split their time between Francis Howell High in the morning, Francis Howell Union for lunch, and then Harvest Ridge in the afternoon. They learned all about curriculum development in that process. They took the U Science aptitude test tool that we use with our students and got to see how that helps our students identify career paths, and many of them talked about how it actually aligned with what they may be doing now or the interests they have. They got to hear from a panel of union graduates who really spoke about how that opportunity prepared them for the great things they're doing in life now, and several of them are actually teachers here in the district at this point. Then they got to try assistive technology tools that many of our students use on a daily basis to help them instructionally. And then they went over to Harvest Ridge for the afternoon, where they got to see PLCs, visit classrooms, and then they got to go outside and help with elementary dismissal, which if you've never done is a whole job in and of itself. So I want to thank Dr. Buckman, Dr. Altman, and the entire academic team for coordinating that day, and all of the leaders that have been helping do this each month. We continue to get a lot of positive feedback from the participants. The group will be back again with us on March 6th for school finance and technology. I want to let you know that we are planning a community roundtable event at the end of February on culture and climate, with the goal of generating actionable items for us and how we can create a more inclusive and welcoming environment in all of our schools for students and staff. More information will be sent out about that in the next week, but the date we're solidifying will be in the last week of February, so we look forward to that coming out shortly. And then board, last, I would like to thank you for the vote to move forward with the security vestibules. We share the frustration you have and that many of our patrons have regarding the difference between the most recent cost estimate we received and where these bids actually came in. It is important. We need to continue to say that until bids come in, those are estimates. We also recognize, though, that this significant discrepancy wasn't acceptable. In a year where we feel like we have taken steps moving forward with the community around Prop S and around our financial responsibility, that this is a bit of a setback. We know that there are some patrons who will be upset with the decision to move forward, but we also recognize that in this situation, the safety of these 5 buildings and having these vestibules in place is of paramount importance. So thank you for the vote to move forward. That's all my comments. Thank you.
Any comments from the board?
Yeah, I have one. I want to all of our wonderful, talented, and dedicated teachers that were at Francis Howell North today. I understand that they had a fire alarm that went off, and I know that it was very well handled and the children were all kept safe. I hope they understood what a terrible situation, but a wonderful time to be outside in the warm air and sunshine. And I'd like to say a few words about our talented teachers, and no offense to Wentzville School District, I hope you're watching, or Orchard Farm, or any of the others that surround us. We do have the best, most talented, and the most dedicated teachers in the entire state. I just want to make that perfectly clear and go on record to say that we're very fortunate to have the teachers that we have. That's what I wanted to say.
I would just like to say just a short little thing. Like, I know I'm not really qualified to speak on anything that we talked about today, because I actually didn't understand half of what you guys were saying. But I tried. but in general, like, I really appreciate the work everyone does here. Like, I didn't realize this much, like, effort and, like, work goes into just the small things that happen in our school, so I really appreciate everyone for doing this.
I just got a couple here. First off, just want to say happy Black History Month. And I want to piggyback a little bit on what Dr. Rumpus said about the Hall of Fame nominations. Up until March 4th, we need as many nominations. If you could give a little bit more details to make it really hard for us to decide who's going to become Hall of Fame winners.
I would like to thank Kush here for his comments. They were very well written. I tried explaining a few things here, but it is kind of difficult when you're trying to listen to everything. But he did an amazing job, and he asked very, very appropriate questions. So thank you for being here and for seeing how this process works.
Just a few quick things. Just a reminder to anybody who hasn't seen it, it's been plastered all over the social media sites, but next Thursday, Causley Elementary kids are hosting a dinner for nurses and first responders and their families. So by all means, if you know any of those people and haven't seen it, please, you can see it on my sites or pretty much anywhere on the schools. Anybody affiliated with the school has posted it by now. So please sign up. Those kids have worked hard, and they love to serve those first responders and nurses. And then second of all, we're well into second semester, and I think just a little reminder for those who can, your teachers, especially in the elementary schools, can always use a little help. So maybe, an Amazon gift card here and there helps them replenish those snacks for kids that forget and little supplies throughout the year. So just little words of encouragement for those who can do it. It's a little thing that goes a long way for a lot of those teachers. So have a good rest of the month, everyone.
President Bertrand, may I share a little celebration that's slightly personal but also work related?
Sure.
So I just want to give a little shout out to the Francis Howell Central freshman basketball team. We have some moms in the room. For the first time ever in Francis Howell Central history, the freshman team won the championship of the GAC tournament. So it was a big deal for those boys last night. Just want to thank Scott Harris and all the coaches and just everybody that poured their hearts into our boys to allow them to have that experience. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing that. Thanks everybody for coming tonight. I would like to thank all the teachers that were involved in the FHEA negotiations as well as the administration, and look forward to the results as that process continues, and look forward to being involved or sitting in on the FISPA negotiations coming up here soon. Appreciate everybody coming, and we will take a recess and then go back into closed session. Thanks everybody.